Hello guys, so today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different video and I wanted to do this just because I feel like more awareness needs to be spread around this sort of topic, and just because I still feel like people don't talk about it enough, and coming from the perspective of someone who's had to experience some of these things, I still do feel sometimes embarrassed when I talk about this, and I just really want that to be able to change. And I want people to be able to see alcoholism the same way and not judge people who have it or judge people who are struggling due to alcohol, because it's something that has a massive effect on people. Sorry if I ramble throughout this, but there's so much information that I've got in my head. I have a few notes to like help me through to be able to talk about it, but I kind of just wanted to get the main bits in this video, not go too like deep into anything. So first of all, I'm gonna start by saying my dad was an alcoholic, and that's something that I never really told people before and I didn't like to talk about, and that is what I found very embarrassing about my dad being poorly. So my dad passed away in October 2016, and 4 years to the day that I will be uploading this video. This has taken me a really long time. Actually, 4 years is a long time, and it's taken me a long time to be able to open up and talk about this. Only really to this year that I've started to understand my own feelings more, and I think that's completely normal. Like, some people are able to process it quicker, some people aren't, and maybe because of the age I was at, I was only 17 when my dad died, so obviously I wasn't going to understand it fully because I was so young still as well. When I was a child, I lived with my mum and my dad, and I don't think anybody really thought about alcoholism from my family as such, because my mum and my dad were still quite young when they met, and obviously they were going out and stuff like that, and that was pretty normal. But I think from talking to my mum, it started to become a problem when me and my brother were born, and he was still continually going out and staying out for really long times and coming back in the morning when me and my brother were getting up, and I think that's kind of when it started to spiral and get a lot worse from the perspective of my family. I don't necessarily remember much from when I was a child of my dad coming in and being drunk. I don't remember any of that, which I do feel really grateful for, but I know that it had a massive impact on my mum, because she was looking after me and my brother and trying to hold down the family while he was out drinking, essentially. As I started to get older, it became worse, and my mum and dad actually got divorced when I was in year 4, I think it was, 8 or 9. My parents got a divorce, and I lived with my mum mainly, but saw my dad, I think, like two times a week most of the time. Same with my younger brother, who's actually 4 years younger than me. This is kind of when it started to get more difficult, as we were around him on our own while he was drinking, and he'd go through times where it would be easier and times where he was drinking a lot more. My dad never wanted to admit that he had a problem. Nobody really, I don't think, thought that he had a problem. He hid it very well. He held down a job forever. He was never unemployed. he had lots of friends, he went out and socialized, and obviously a lot of the time this did involve drinking. A lot of his friends drank a lot, not necessarily meaning that they're alcoholics, but it was obviously difficult for him because he wouldn't have been able to socialize with his friends almost without alcohol. For him to admit that he had a problem would have been difficult because his friends were doing the same and it wasn't necessarily impacting on their life as it was to his. As I started to kind of get older, I started to realise more what was going on, and my mum was a lot more honest with me about things because I was talking about it and wanting to know why my dad was drinking and why sometimes he was there and sometimes he wasn't there. I just had a lot of questions, I think, and I didn't feel really able to talk to my dad about it because I didn't want him to be upset with me for asking questions. I don't know why I felt like that. I just felt I didn't want to ever accuse him of being an alcoholic or having a problem. I didn't want to be the one to put that on him and to tell him that. And I think a lot of what I've learnt this year is that you cannot help someone unless they want to be helped. You cannot force someone to go and seek help, to go to AA meetings, to get counselling, unless they actually want to do it, because they are never going to stick with it. It all started to get a lot worse when I think I was in secondary school, maybe in about year 9. I think my mum had gone away abroad, and my brother was staying with my dad, and we never really, my mum always let us see him because most of the time, like, it wasn't horrific. Like, yes, there were times where I'd call my mum and I didn't want to be there, and I wanted to go and see my mum and I didn't want to be around my dad, but most of the time he could hold it down. He just would never have an evening where he didn't drink. So I went to Thorpe Park for a day with my friends. I think I was in year 9, yeah, or year 10, and I can remember getting back onto the coach, must have been about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because we had like a 3-hour coach journey home, so I was nowhere near my dad or my brother. My mum was away, and I had a phone call from I think it was my auntie, because my brother had tried contacting my mum and then passed him over to my auntie because my auntie was in the country and quite close by. And basically, long story short, my brother was just in absolute bits. He's 4 years younger. I don't think I have no idea. Like, I haven't spoken to him about it too much, so I can't say how he feels, but he didn't understand what was going on. And basically my dad had gotten drunk at home with my brother there, had tried to make my brother some dinner and fell over and hit his head in the kitchen, whilst only my brother was there. So obviously my brother was like really scared, didn't know what to do because my dad was just on the floor. And this is kind of the point where a lot changed for me, because I started becoming very protective of my brother. I didn't want my brother to be there without me. He didn't really want to be there if someone else wasn't there with him, because that was such a scary thing for him to deal with, especially at quite a young age. He was still in primary school. So after this, I never let my brother go to my dad's on his own. Neither of us would really stay there on our own, and there was a point where it started to get better and my dad started speaking to a counsellor on the phone, and we all kind of thought this might be the turning point. He was running loads, completely sober, not drinking at all, and kind of getting his life back on track. But there was obviously quite a few demons in his life that he hadn't dealt with, and this is why I'm trying to deal with mine now, because I never want to end up in a situation where the only thing that I feel like I can turn to is alcohol, which is how he must have felt. My dad always drank wine. I don't really know why. It's what I remember him drinking a lot. He used to put red wine in a pint glass, and he would tell us that it was blackcurrant juice. And I was at that age where I was like, he's lying. I knew he was lying, and I started to confront him. So more issues kind of started to arise when I started confronting my dad, because he didn't want to talk about these things, but I was at that age where I was noticing stuff and I couldn't not say anything. And at times it did get very heated, and I sort of started spending less and less time with him because I was just really upset about it. I would never bring my friends round to my dad's house. I think only a couple of my friends sort of met him because I was just so embarrassed if he was drunk while they were around, or kind of saw something that I wouldn't necessarily want them to see. And that was, I think, really difficult for me when I was younger, because it meant that my relationship with my dad did start to deteriorate quicker, because I was spending less time with him, and the time that I was spending there, I was having to feel like I was being more of a mum to my younger brother than being able to actually have enjoyment and spending time there. This did put a lot of strain between me and my brother, because he didn't want me to try and look after him. Of course, I'm his big sister, I'm not his mum, and I wasn't trying to. I think I was just trying to do what was best, and I didn't really know what was best. As nobody knew my dad as an alcoholic, it was more difficult, because it meant that I didn't talk to anyone about it at all. The only person I really spoke to was my mum, and yeah, it was always really difficult, having to kind of come to the realisation that he probably did need help, but he didn't want it. Myself and my dad actually ran a half marathon in March 2016, which was amazing. And he kind of, before this, we had a really rough time over that Christmas, with him sometimes contacting us, telling us he was poorly, but not really expanding. A lot of the time he would just say he had a chest infection and stuff, and obviously the more it happened, the more we kind of came to realise that this wasn't the case. We had about a month of actually not seeing him, and then I ran the half marathon with him in March 2016. I don't know how we both managed to do that, to be honest. That's one of the fondest memories I kind of have with my dad. And then over the summer it deteriorated massively. There was a point where we didn't see him for quite a long time, and I can just remember being at the bus stop after school, and I was like, do I ring him? And I would just ring him and I wouldn't get an answer. And it was just difficult having that almost like rejection, because all I wanted was contact with my dad, and I didn't understand why. I didn't know if he was safe. I can remember running past his house when I was like out on runs to check if his car was there, or maybe if I'd see him around, because his family live up in Birmingham, like my dad's had a family live in Birmingham, so I didn't know if maybe he had gone there when his car wasn't there. And then I almost felt comfort when his car was there, because I knew hopefully that he would be in there, but he wasn't answering, and I never was able to like see anything through his window or anything. And it made me feel kind of crazy that I was doing that. It sounds a bit mad, but actually I think that's pretty normal when you're not hearing from a parent. And obviously I was under 18, and my mum didn't want me exposed to anything that could have potentially hurt me more than everything had already hurt me. I always remember, like, I would like lay in my room at his house at night, and I'd just be awake because every time I heard a sound, I felt relieved because I knew that he wasn't dead. And I can't believe that as young as like being in year 7, I was laying in my bed awake the whole night when I had school the next day because I was listening out for my dad because I was worried that he was going to be dead. And I used to pretend that I was going into the kitchen to get a drink. Actually, I was just checking because sometimes he would have fell asleep on the sofa and like not made it to bed, and I would just check and see if he was breathing, or if he kind of like came around when I walked in. I'd make as much noise as possible because I just wanted to know that he was okay. And I think that was like the most difficult part about it, because no child should have to worry about their parent like that when they're so young and having so much other things to deal with. It made me grow up really quickly, which is one thing I'm so grateful for today, because I am who I am because it's happened to me. But it was also a really difficult time in my life. So the last time I actually heard from my dad was in September 2016, the 25th, and he texted me just letting me know he was okay and that hopefully, you know, he can meet up with us, me and my brother, soon, and that he loved us. And unfortunately that was it. After this, we had absolutely no contact with him at all. None of his family was able to get hold of him. My mum wasn't able to get hold of him. The only person that knew he was okay was his best friend, who actually had keys to his house, which was kind of the only thing keeping us going, knowing that he was still alive, because we would know if he wasn't, because his friend would have been there and been able to, you know, inform the police or inform us of this. We actually found out that he'd passed away on the 27th of October 2016. This was very much a blur for me. I can remember my mum and my stepdad sitting me and my brother down to talk to us and tell us about it, and I can just remember instantly leaving the house. I went out with my friends. I didn't tell a single soul what had just happened, and I just tried to not think about it because I was so hurt and angry. I was very angry at first. I was angry that my dad had left me and my brother. I was angry that he didn't get to see neither of his children turn 18. I was angry that he hadn't seen me go to university and hadn't even seen my brother be in secondary school. Like, my brother had only just started secondary school. He hadn't even seen him bloom into the person he is today. I think that's the worst part about it all, is that he missed out on our life because he chose alcohol over his family. I spent a lot of the last 4 years not talking to people about how it made me feel, and at the funeral I was obviously upset, but I was very numb to it all and I didn't take it in. I can hardly remember what happened, and I was so scared to tell my friends because I didn't want them to feel on eggshells when they were talking about their dads, or I didn't want them to accidentally call my stepdad my dad, because I didn't want them to feel upset about it. So I just didn't talk about it, and I think that was probably the worst thing. But then I bottled up my anger and my hurt, and I didn't know what else to do about it. This summer, whilst we were actually in lockdown, I decided that it was the time for me to start dealing with my problems. And I think they turned into bigger issues because I didn't talk to anyone. I'd hardly talk to my mum. My mum felt as if she couldn't bring it up unless I brought it up. I didn't talk to my brother about it because I never would want to taint the way my brother saw my dad, because I know he idolised him, of course, because that's his dad, and he didn't understand things and didn't see things the way I did because of how much older I was. After dealing with what I was going through and the issues that I felt around it, of my dad leaving us and actually not understanding that being an alcoholic is a disease, and that he wouldn't have been able to, you know, it wasn't his fault, and he wasn't doing it because he wanted to leave us. He was doing this because he was trying to deal with his own issues, and unfortunately it just got too much for him in the end. I think now I'm able to see the happy memories that I have with my dad, because aside from all of the horrific times and the hurt and the upset that he caused, I had some of the most incredible times with my dad, and I wouldn't change who he was. He was so loving and so funny, and I think that's where now I'm able to see how lucky I was as well to actually have a dad that did want to care. And it was just the disease that unfortunately took over him in the end. And I just want everyone to know that it's okay, and having a parent who's an alcoholic is not an embarrassing thing. It's something that happens to so many people, and you need to talk about it, because you will never be able to experience the happy memories fully if you aren't able to deal with the hurt and the pain that was caused as well. And I know that there's different levels of alcoholism, and it was pretty horrific for my dad to have died of this, but he was so good at coping with it, and nobody saw it. He was a high functioning alcoholic. He had a job until the day that he died. Like, it's not a shameful thing to talk about, and it can ruin people, and I'm sure it would have ruined me if I hadn't have opened up about it and spoken about it, because I am 100 times happier with myself now. And it takes time. It's taken me 4 years to be able to mention him in a conversation and bring him up to my brother, or bring him up to my mum or to the rest of my family, and look at pictures with them of him when he was younger, and him with his brothers and sisters, and what he did when he was younger, and actually think, wow, I had an amazing dad, and just because he was an alcoholic, that doesn't make him a horrible person. I'm going to link some charities down below and some helplines. If anyone is watching this needs someone to reach out to, please reach out to people. And if you are in a time where you feel like you can't cope with it anymore, please reach out, because there are always people out there that are going to be able to help get you through some of the worst times in your life. I genuinely feel what I've been through has completely changed me as a person, and I don't think that I would be where I am if this hadn't have happened to me. And as hard as it is to say, it's made me who I am, but I'll always love my dad, and I will never forget the most incredible memories that I actually had with him. Thank you so much for watching this video today. I think I probably will do a few more like this, opening up further, because I feel like really I've just skimmed the surface today. But I want there to be more awareness about this. I want people to know that it is something that people deal with, and it's more common than you think it is, and the likelihood that you'll know someone who's going through something similar to you is so high. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I just really hope that if anyone sees this that is going through something similar to what has happened to me, it makes them feel slightly less alone, and that there are always people out there who are struggling as well, and there are always people that will be able to talk to you.